So here we go again, take 10. Can I just tell you how hard it has been to record this video and how discouraged I have been throughout this entire process? Nonetheless, all right, I know what you're thinking. I haven't been here for a while. That's what you're thinking? You are correct. Welcome back. It's your girl here, Sydney Arielle. And I haven't been on YouTube in 2 years. Please bear with me. Let me be more serious. So it's been a while since I have recorded, and for good reason. I mean, healing is a journey. On a serious note, I was away trying to get right, trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. Like, what I didn't want to continue to create content and have like no direction, and I had no idea what I wanted to talk about, what I wanted to do, none of that. So I stepped away. I stopped doing makeup because it was becoming an idol. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm never gonna pick up a brush again. I mean, I do my makeup when I go somewhere. I just don't do it for content purposes. But that's not to say that I won't come back. I don't know yet. I'm still praying about it. I feel like I couldn't come back to YouTube without giving my testimony. We're gonna set a new foundation. I mean, there are still some older videos that you can go back and watch if you would like to, but this is the beginning of something new. We're gonna get this done and we're gonna get this shared. I've been having this urge to record myself talking about my testimony for a good while, and it's either I don't feel like doing it anymore, my phone runs out of space, or someone is discouraging me from doing it. So I'm doing it. And I'm gonna do it until it gets done. I'm gonna skim through certain things only because the trauma that I went through growing up deserves its own message. But I did go through trauma growing up. And it was like sexual, verbal, mental. I went through all of that, but we still were going to church. So I did have like a church foundation growing up, but home life wouldn't really reflect that. For me, when you grow up going to church, you as an adult need to have an experience with God to really know. Like, I mean, yes, you go through the motions at church, but like when you leave the church, what is it like? And I feel like that was like the running theme of my upbringing. Like, you know, raised in the church, but like we said grace, but like I'm not gonna say it was all bad. It was just toxic. I was born in Philly, but raised in Maryland. And so I was in Maryland, and then family stuff started happening, and I ended up in Philly. More family stuff started happening. Fast forward to me stepping into adulthood. I want to say, for me, to be honest, that was around 17 because I was on my own. I mean, I was going to church because I was like, oh yeah, it's the right thing to do, but it wasn't like I feel like I wanted the Lord, but maybe not enough. So I was like going just to have like the sense of comfort that going to church brings, but like there was no depth to it. And I was renting rooms in people's homes until I saved up enough to get my own apartment in my early 20s at this point. I feel like maybe that's when like New Age started rearing its ugly head, because it was like, you know, yoga and the universe and like all of that. So it was like, you're going to church, but then at the same time, like, oh yeah, the universe and angel numbers and small doses that became big picture. if that makes sense. So it was like these little things. Oh yeah, but I mean, like, the God is still like, yeah. But then it was like the universe manifesting, and you know, the universe knows what I need. It sounds ridiculous now that I say it, but that's really like where my mind was, because the people I was surrounding myself with were saying these things, and you know, it just became my thinking. The world's thinking became my thinking. I was in situationships and like toxic friendships and all that, and it was almost like I thought that the people that I surrounded myself with had my best interest. And then I feel like, too, they might have had something that I subconsciously thought I lacked in myself, which is why I kept them around. Even though they were like no good for me. And it was like I was just dealing with people, or like just accepting whatever they gave me, because the trauma that I went through growing up didn't really teach me anything but like self-hate and self-doubt, and you know, I'm never going to be good enough. Everything is just going to be difficult, and you know, I just have to accept whatever life throws at me, which is completely not true. But you couldn't tell me that stepping into my adulthood, because it's like, yeah, I went through that. I'm trying to better myself, so I'm doing what I think is best in spite of what I went through, instead of taking everything that I went through as like a learning experience. I was using it to be like, this man said I'm beautiful, and you know, even though no good. When you feel like you have a point to prove, even though you have no audience, it just like, it's a pride thing. And if you don't heal that, you're going to constantly be trying to like heal in ways that you think are necessary, when the deeper issue is, because of the actions of somebody else, you don't really know who you are, because you spent your childhood being told, you know, you're not going to be good enough. And it was like repetitive over and over and over and over again. At least for me. Let me speak for me, because I'm saying we, like everybody went through the same stuff. But for me, over and over and over again, I was being discouraged. So becoming an adult, it was sort of like, well, you can't tell me nothing. I'm an adult now. I have my own job. I have my own place. And, you know, I'm doing good. And I wasn't healing. I was like throwing more trash into the dumpster fire that was my life at the time. I thought I'm healed enough to date. There wasn't really a goal in mind. I won't say I was dating intentionally. I was dating because I wanted companionship, in hindsight. But I wanted to be in a relationship. Sometimes I feel like, I'll speak for we. Sometimes we tell ourselves this lie when we're talking to someone new, when we're dating, and we're like, I just want to see where it goes. No. I don't want to see where this goes. You're either for me or you're not. And I don't want to waste my time with someone who is not for me. Because I have a goal in mind. And that is to become a wife. And I don't want you wasting my time or getting in my husband's way. But anyway, so that was not the thoughts that I had back then. And again, nothing about the Lord that was included. So I'm dating, I'm going on, I think I went on Hinge, I tried Tinder, and I met this guy. Well, I met a couple guys, but I met this one guy. We started going on dates. I started to like him, even though what I now see was the Holy Spirit. I called it our intuition. Something in my spirit, something on the inside was telling me not to do it. And I was nauseous a little bit, but I still thought this opportunity to be a girlfriend has has shown itself to me, and I want to accept. So I get into this relationship. I'm in the relationship. Everything seemed to be fine. Maybe the first month. After the first month, actually no, because I saw things that I glazed over like an idiot in the beginning. But again, not knowing my worth and doing things in spite of, I saw the potential in what we could be, and I moved off of that. Get into this relationship, over time, stuff just started getting worse and worse. And I couldn't figure out at the time what was going on. What was I thinking? And why could I not let this person that is clearly not for me go? And we got to the 6-month mark, and I realized something is going on. So we were asleep one night, and we're gonna rewind for a second, because when I was renting rooms in people's houses, I started waking up at 3:40 a.m. every day, or almost every day. And I couldn't figure out why, and I never looked into it. I was just like, why am I up right now? And then I would go back to sleep, or I would get up and go to the bathroom, or do something. Like I wouldn't talk to God, but I was up and I was doing other things until I went back to sleep. Around 6 months, we were asleep, and my apartment has wood floors. So whenever you walk, you can hear it. Everybody was asleep. It wasn't the people above me making noise or anything like that. So keep that in mind. But I heard footsteps in my room. And we are dead asleep. I heard footsteps in my room. I jolted up, and it was like stomping. So I jolted up when we were asleep, and I was like, and it woke him up as well. And I looked at the clock. It was 3:40, and I was like, how ironic. I still didn't think anything of it, but I was rattled. It didn't scare me. It felt like a warning. I think a couple days later, I went to a prayer night, and afterwards, everybody was sitting around the table having a conversation, and one of the people at the table had asked me, was I still in a relationship with the guy? He's been around. I introduced him to people before. So she asked me, was he still around? Was he still in my life? And I said yes. She asked me, were we having sex? And I said yes. And she said, okay, because when you walked in, there was like a dark presence following you. So then she was asking me like what was going on in the relationship, and I told her like at the 6-month mark, this guy had cheated on me. He was blaming me for him cheating, and it was just a hot mess. I was being gaslit and manipulated by a narcissist, and I still was in the relationship. So she was basically telling me like, you need to leave him alone. And I was like, yes, because I had been feeling that ever since that night where me and him both woke up at 3:40 because of the footsteps. I had been feeling like it's time to check out. We prayed and everything, and then I told her about how I'd been waking up at 3:40 every night for years, and how a couple nights ago I had woke up at 3:40 and he was sleeping and in the bed with me, and we both woke up because we heard footsteps. And she asked me, she said, have you ever looked up anything 3:40 in the Bible? So I was like, so we both pulled out our Bibles and we started looking. And mind you, I, at this time, was not someone who just pulled out my Bible and read it. I wasn't a Bible note taker. I wasn't reading the Bible. I wasn't reading the word. I was barely praying. And so she said this. I was just like, no, I haven't. And then I was explaining to her too, how I was like, I thought somebody was coming to visit me, like an ancestor. Girl, I was into some dumb stuff. But so I explained this to her, and she said, well, let's look in the Bible. So we opened up our Bibles. We looked up every single chapter, every single book in the Bible. And I found two. I found Numbers and I found Limitations. So let me read. So Numbers 3:40. Numbers 3:40 says, then the Lord said to Moses, now count all the firstborn sons in Israel who are 1 month old or older, and make a list of their names. So I was like, what does this have to do with the price of tea in China? And then I was like, I wrote it down, and I was like, well, let me keep looking. So I went all the way to Limitations. Limitations says, instead, let us test and examine our ways. Let us turn back to the Lord. So I was sitting there like epiphany, boom. The Lord has been talking to me this whole time, been wanting me to wake up at 3:40 to turn to the Lord. For all these years, I've been doing my own thing, doing things how I thought I should do them. I never turned to the Lord because I just didn't. Because it's not something that I've ever done. And so me and my surviving was doing what I thought was best. And that's not how God wants us to live. He wants us to cast our cares on him. But I was not doing that at all. So when I say, it was a mind-blowing experience. So I went home. On the way home, I think I was crying because I was like, the Lord been talking to me this whole time. So just imagine for a second, like, you doing the wrong thing over and over and over again. And the Lord is just like, I'll wait. I'm about to cry right now. Can you imagine someone who loves you so much is just waiting for you to stop trying to survive and to turn to him and be with him and let him lead you so he can lead you in the right direction instead of you constantly hitting dead ends doing what you think is right. Ciao. After that, I got home and I broke up with him. No, I called him. He might have called me. I'm not sure. I just knew as soon as I stepped foot in the door, because as soon as you walk in the door, there's my kitchen. And so I was in the kitchen on my phone, and I think I still had my purse on because I was like, this needs to happen now. The Lord said, examine your ways. And this is one way. This one way. Gotta go. I called him and I was like, trying to like soft launch a breakup. I did explain to him, how I've been waking up at 3:40 every night. And he was a little, I could tell he was uneasy, but I didn't, acknowledge it. So I, told him, I said, well, how I told you I've been waking up at 3:40 every night? He was like, yeah. I said, okay, so the Lord has been speaking to me. I didn't realize it. He was like, what do you mean? And I was telling him what I found in the Bible and how the Lord has been speaking to me. I told him what Limitations 3:40 means, and it sounded like I was talking to someone completely different. And it kind of scared me a little bit. But I knew it had to be the devil, because he was saying things like, you're using the Lord as a crutch. And it sounded like, low-key, a snake. And I was like, okay. I said, well, I'm fine with that. Use the Lord as a crutch. Yeah, I'm going to use the Lord as a crutch. Are you dumb? I'll be honest, it was like a on and off communication thing. It was like this weird social media stalking situation going on, and it had to stop. So it wasn't like a clean break, but I did get to the point where I was like, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you playing with me. And, you know, go mess with somebody else. Don't, but like, you're going to do it anyway. You know what I mean? I think that's the point where I started getting serious about learning about God, because I felt like that was so amazing to me, how it was like right there in front of me this whole time. And I just had to pick up the Bible and read what God has been trying to say to me. So I did just that. I examined my ways. I didn't like it. And I turned to God. And, you know, even now, I do have my moments where I struggle, because your walk with the Lord is never going to be a cakewalk. It's going to be you picking up your cross and carrying it. So after all of that, after I broke up with him and I realized that the Lord was talking to me, I did give my life back to Christ, and I had to make some changes to the things that I did and the way that I talked and dressed and the people that I had around me. But I knew that I would have some struggles. But I feel like I was ready for it. Like, you know, I had this new mindset of it's me and God. So shortly after that, gave my life back to Christ, and I decided that I was going to be celibate, because that's one of the things that I did struggle with. And not to say that I had a whole phase, because I didn't have a whole phase, but I was thinking, I guess, worldly, like, this is something that I want to do, and there's nothing wrong with it, but there is. And so when I gave my life back to Christ and I became celibate, it was sort of like it just, you know, this is what I'm gonna do. And I never really thought twice about it until people started coming to me, trying to have those types of conversations. And I'm like, well, I don't do any of that. Like, there was no sexual activity at all. There are times where I struggle with my thoughts, and that is something that I have been praying about. But I stopped. And not to say that I thought it would be this long that I've been celibate, but it's been a very rewarding journey, because I can definitely attest to there being soul ties and demons associated with you having sex with different people. Like, you're opening yourself up to someone who's not your husband, first of all. And then to whatever demons that they're dealing with, they're now latching onto you because you done opened yourself up. You became one with this person. And that is not something that I want for myself, or that I wanted for myself moving forward. So I knew, you know, I was already dealing with whatever I was dealing with, breaking up with this guy. I wanted to heal from that. And then I just wanted to heal in total, because I did not want to deal with any more soul ties and opening myself up to anybody that's not my husband. Because then I feel like, too, that's sort of like disrespect. You're disrespecting yourself, because you're opening yourself up to someone that has no covenant with you. So you open yourself up to them. You give them your most intimate part like it's nothing, and turn around and act like it meant nothing. I can't do that. I can't. And I refuse to do it ever again. The next person I have sex with will be my husband, because it is so sacred. And the more that I realize that, the more happy and motivated that I became to be celibate. I mean, there are still struggles. There are still, you know, moments where I'm like, I feel loneliness, or, you know, I feel like, man, if I could just... And, you know, sometimes I be looking at these guys and they're like, wow, he looks good. But, like, lusting, like, you have to constantly kill your flesh celibacy is rewarding when you're doing it with God in mind. Who better to have a soul-tying connection with than the person that you are supposed to be spending the rest of your life with? I feel like, too, you have to respect whatever season that God has you in. You just have to be in that season and be present in that season. And, you know, because the more that you wish that you were in another season of your life, you might not be ready for that season. So give your life to Christ. Make that decision, because I'm not going to say if, or maybe you should. I think you should. I think everybody should. I think we should all be on one accord here. If you're watching this video, please message me. And 2, find a good church, because I won't say church hopping, but it took me a while to find like a church that I really felt like was feeding me, and that, you know, I had a community of people who would support me and love me and be there for me. And I feel like I'm at that point where I have found that. And it wasn't until literally last year that I found it, but to belong to be a part of a community that loves the Lord, so you can get good leadership and find friends that aren't leading you into the wrong direction. Like, if you know you want a relationship with the Lord, but nobody around you is doing that, you have to separate yourself. And that's one of the things that I did learn that I had to do. But separate yourself, because you want more for your life. Sometimes the people around you don't want more. They're okay with where they're at, but we have plans, we got things to do. We can't be stagnant in the same place over and over again. You know what I mean? If you want better, you have to do better. And you have to make some sacrifices, because the sacrifices that you make today will be fruitful in the future. I don't know if I'm going to get any comments, period. But I also don't know if I'm going to get any comments saying, you weren't celibate, you're abstinent. I can't tell you the difference between the two. I just know I gave up sex. I gave up masturbation. I gave up porn. I decided I was going to wait until marriage. So whatever label that goes under is whatever label that goes under. But I say celibate because that's what I call it. So I'm going to end this video here, but I want to say stay tuned for more videos, because I feel inspired to continue. I do miss being on YouTube, but we'll just have to see. But thanks for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, I appreciate you. I love you all, and see you next time.